Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello once again, welcome to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 95th iteration, and we're recording it on the 29th of June, 2013.
14.
Wow.
You are 1 year in the past, buddy.
Huh. Okay, anyways. I don't know why I said that. My name is Josh Trelevin, and the other person at the other microphone is...
Correctionist extraordinaire, Ryan Kirkby.
Good. I don't know what I'd do without you, Ryan.
Oh, you get all the dates wrong. They'd be looking back to the history and says, well, they've got, iteration 95, and then they've got iteration 43 on the same date. What's going on there? They'd have thought you were a time traveler.
Yeah, well, that'd be cool. But I'm not a time traveler, am I?
Not that we can prove.
Right.
So yeah. I think it's been a nice week. This week in real life, I've been enjoying the summer week, the wonderful weather. How about you?
Yes, I have also been enjoying the nice, fine weather. I've been outside quite a bit.
I do feel a little guilty loving the weather so much because Alberta's been getting a lot of rain. Because apparently Alberta now has a monsoon season. Who could have predicted that?
Yeah, I mean I've seen rain in Alberta before, but
well, with the last couple of years, with the amount of rain they've gotten, it's effectively a monsoon season they're getting, as close as Alberta's ever gotten. On the other hand, at least they're getting rain. I recall them historically having some very low rainfall yields throughout the year, so maybe if they find a way to bottle it all up for later when everything dries out in the summer.
Yeah, that's called, reservoirs.
I suppose. I was, just imagining them putting it in huge, Evian bottles.
Yeah, okay, that works too.
Well, it's some way to recycle the plastic, at least. That way, what do you do whenever you recycle the bottle? You go, well, that's for the good of all Alberta. You should see the large bottles they've got going on there.
For the good of all Alberta.
There you go. At least that's how it works in my head. But yeah, in the fictional world, we've been rather busy. At least I have. How about you?
Who should we start with?
Let's go with you.
Okay, let's go with me. I have been, today at least, I've been a bit busy. I've been writing a couple of different things. I've been, I've mentioned, I'm always trying little projects. So I started writing a sitcom. I don't know how far it'll go, but
at least you've given the exercise for that.
And yeah, and I'm not claiming to be the kind of guy who can write a sitcom, or I don't know the first thing. Well, I know the first thing about it is get it down on paper, but after that, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. So,
well, from what I've seen historically, not everybody who managed to make a sitcom onto TV really knew what they were doing either. I've seen some very bad pilots in my day.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so I've been writing that. I don't mind sharing the idea, because there's not that many people listening to this, but also because
you trust implicitly.
Well, there's that, but I also think the main bulk of the work is more in the execution and less in the ideas. Even though right now I'm sort of putting effort into ideas, I don't feel like that's the main thing.
So you're saying one of our many, many listeners out there who would hear this might take the idea, run with it, and come out with a completely different product.
Actually, yeah, I think it would. I think that's the case. Yeah. Although, did I mention? Okay, so the actual premise of it I've mentioned this before on the podcast, sort of in passing, but it's about a gaming group. It's a sitcom based on a group of gamers who play D&D, on a weekly or whatever basis, and it's just a story. It's about their lives, and it's kind of like maybe The Guild meets Big Bang Theory. It's very mainstream. It's very like
the Big Guild theory.
Yeah, it's very much like Big Bang Theory, except it's more focused on. Let's see, these people are not the excellent people that Leonard and Sheldon are.
With their PhDs and their master's degrees and all that.
Yeah, they're kind of, those guys are high functioning. So my group is more low function. And they're still successful, sort of in a general sense. They have happy. Well, and I shouldn't say that about Big Bang Theory because they have their problems and their issues too, and different things with their family lives, and not all of them make that much money because academia is not that lucrative a field.
Oh, once you get into academia, it's just caviar and champagne every night of the week.
Yeah. But yeah, in a way, those characters are very successful.
They're making a very comfortable living. They can afford to all get plane tickets to go down to Texas to see Sheldon's mom for something.
Yeah, that's true. They can travel, and there's sort of although now we're getting into Big Bang Theory, so why not? But at the end of the last season that just ended, like in the spring, Sheldon actually gave up on his career, or I guess he's taking a break or whatever, because he's going away and riding the rails or something. I can't remember now what exactly. Yeah, I think he took a train somewhere.
Oh.
And he
was allowed to take the train. He didn't steal it, right? He doesn't gone from eclectic weirdo to full blown supervillain, right?
Well, that would be fun, but no, he's still not at that level.
Okay, just making sure. Just making sure.
That's one of the things I like about Sheldon is the fact that he is very brilliant, but he's also not capable of functioning on his own. That's makes for good relationship material because it's he has to rely on his friends, but he's annoying. So yeah.
We've all got that friend, and if we don't have that friend, think to yourself about what that means personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're working more along the blue collar worker then.
Yeah, or whatever collar it is that you wear at Staples. I guess that's because the main character works at Staples, or at least for now he works at Staples. But
the current draft has him working at Staples.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm having fun, thinking of characters and origins and backstories, and it's all rooted in the real world. This is. I've often...
You won't be showing them, as their characters going through a dungeon?
Yeah, exactly. And so, in the past, I've always, whenever I sat down to write something, I always thought, I'm going to do something fantasy or sci-fi and really explore that. But this is the first time I've sort of taken on or begun a project that's more okay, these are real people in sort of our world.
So if you want to take Josh's idea and turn it into your own, what you do is you just set it in the Star Trek universe. It's about a bunch of ensigns and low-level guys just playing in the holodeck.
Yeah.
And that's all you want to see about them. All the stuff that aliens, the quasars and pulsars and stuff that wind up damaging the ship, that one's never featured for your little bit of the story. It's all about them as they all come together after, in the downtime and chill out, slashing and hacking at fake dragons in the holosuite.
I like the thought, too, that they go in the holodeck, but they turn off all the holo emitters, they deactivate, so they're just playing in that, the yellow grid.
I do like that classic grid. Yellow-black grid, yeah.
And maybe they have a table or something, or maybe even miniatures. They're playing D&D in the middle of that room, and just
Yes, we could expand it all so that we're playing on a 1-to-1 scale, but we find that it really doesn't give you the same classical, 20th and even 19th century perspective. So we have to do it with miniatures, but we're not paying $19.95 per miniature. We're just going to have the holodeck generate one for free. Take that, Games Workshop.
Yeah, I guess they will go out of business. Actually,
I can see Games Workshop being able to copyright their stuff, and then you being able to adventure in the holosuite lands of the Warhammer and Warhammer 40k universe.
Yeah.
In which case, they make the good, I guess it'd be press Latinum in that case, sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
The credits? I don't know. It gets a little nebulous as to who uses what currency there sometimes.
I am kind of like, you see the hints of the world turning digital in, like, you know, because there are more and more sort of digital goods, and you can have digital miniatures in your various games, but it hasn't really transitioned completely over. Like, still people use actual miniatures, and I don't know.
I know Wizards of the Coast has had a hard time getting people to buy digital copies of their Magic cards. That the sales have never been quite the same as the physical copy stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know how far away it is when the world transitions to entirely virtual or entirely holographic. You know, we might all be wearing things on our heads or
I'll tell you this,
in our brains.
When that happens, sort of thing, and Games Workshop has to go full digital and like immerse you deep into their worlds, the Klingons are just going to go absolutely just like some sort of, you know, whatever Klingon version of orgasmic joy is for them. They're just going to love the Warhammer universe. In the grim, dark world of the future, there is only war and Klingons in the most happiest state you can imagine. And honestly, if you're planning on writing a fanfic about like a Klingon in the Warhammer universe in a Holosuite deck going on, I would love to see that. I would love to see how the Klingons react to that.
Yeah,
that sort of world. It would just be magnificent.
Yeah.
Because that's the bit that always got me. I mean, the Klingons are good on their personal combat, and they got their batless and all that sort of thing. No power armor, and that's what has always gotten me. Like, where's the Klingon power armor thing going on? Because I could see them digging into that deep.
Yeah.
And yet they seem to be effectively just, you know, like Spartans oil themselves up almost naked sort of fighting style. That seems to be how they prefer.
Yeah, well, you would think in Star Trek, in a technologically advanced world like Star Trek, you'd almost never have sort of ground-based combat, because it would almost always be resolved by whatever you're doing in the spaceships and starships, right?
Well, see, that's the thing where it breaks down in space combat, though, is as soon as you can like hit something, the next star system over with your, you know, light, you know, faster than light, you know, ray gun, you start having very, very long range issues. It's like, why do you even need to see your ship to fire, you know?
Yeah.
And if they have the computing power that they should in the future, then, you know, Data should have been the tactical commander instead of Worf, and then he could have just basically nuked out everything from halfway across the stellar system. But that doesn't make for good storytelling in a visual format.
Well, I don't see that happening from the Federation, because they have, like, you know, ethics and stuff. But
you know what's ethical? Not putting your underlings in harm's way.
Okay. It's
ethically unsound to get so close you are in danger yourself. That's it. I do recall the Star Thugs universe. It's not a big, well-known universe, but well-loved by those who read it and reviewed it. According to them, the reason why you don't have like these auto-targeting systems that work across, you know, entire, you know, star systems is because every time someone develops one of that stuff, someone hacks it, proclaims himself the emperor of the system, and just generally be like a snot-nosed dick about it. And so it boils down to very intense personal combat. Why? Because you always control where your weapon is going. And yes, they do have physical weapons in that one. Why do you board someone's ship and attack them with a sword and not, you know, a little phaser gun? Well, because a phaser gun does not need even a cute little scorch mark on the wall. It blasts through the wall and messes up the bathroom on the other side. And then all of a sudden everyone's got to deal with, you know, like bad bathroom facilities and, you shut out the gravity system too in a zero-gravity atmosphere now.
Oh boy.
And so, yeah, when you're boarding a ship, you actually do use melee weapons, because that way you don't accidentally destroy everything, or especially, worst comes to worst, accidentally depressurize the outer hull of the spacecraft.
Yeah. Although you'd think they'd have kind of self-healing materials in the walls by that point in the future.
That high-end technology is only available to very few species. You can actually get your ship made mostly out of steel. You will get laughed at, very badly laughed at, because everyone will see how low grade your stuff is. Mm-hmm. But if you need to haul something from A to B, and the distance between A to B happens to be the void of space, Yeah, you can just toss it into like effectively a big metal box and just haul it off that way.
Like interstellar shipping, yeah. Makes sense.
Basically, yeah. That's one of the very good options you can do there. Not as lucrative as like stealing other people's, hauling stuff, but it's a good viable trade and completely legal, which is always a nice bonus in that sort of setting.
Cool. Okay, yeah. So
we've gotten off on about a double tangent there.
Started ready to. Oh, I wanted to. I have props, but I don't know how this is going to work for the podcast. I wanted to show you.
Okay. So Josh is bringing up. It looks to be a nice Heward's handy haversack-like thing.
It's my haversack. See, notice it looks a little bit like D&D-ish. I have my busker's license on here, and I have my Mountain Dew case. Is this going to fall? So this folds.
The Mountain Dew case folds out.
It's open, and in theory, I might have to rethink this Mountain Dew case, but that's for money. So it goes in there.
You're going to get enough money, it needs a full Mountain Dew case.
Yeah, I'm going to fill that up with money, awesome. And I have my bylaws of where I'm allowed to go.
Because you can't busk just anywhere. I mean, don't let people tell you.
I have my Dungeon Master screen, which goes on the ground.
For those who can't see it, which is everybody except me at this point, it's actually the Planescape Dungeon Masters one. Yeah. So it's got that Lady of Pain on the front for the really nice, awesome image.
And it's kind of bluish, rusty colored. So and I also got it for this because it stands taller than the other ones. And what else? I have a little pocket here full of dice. Those are, what dice are like. So, or they're kind of
caltrop through nearly rounded size.
They're the bigger ones. So.
Easier to see, sort of thing.
Big dice. More. Let's see, a map of all the places where I'm allowed to. I haven't marked down everywhere yet. I've only got 2 marks on there. And then fake Dungeon Master's Guide, which is when people ask me about the rules, I'll just open it up and be like...
It's all blank pages on the inside. Yeah.
Blank Dungeon Master's Guide, and...
Because Josh has it all memorized.
What is this? Receipt and schedule, and that's about it. That's
miscellaneous.
Yeah. And I have a hat, too, but I didn't put the hat in there.
So now you can be like a traveling, street dungeon master.
So, yes, that's my plan. And I wanted to also... bring this up on the podcast too because I'm a little bit trepidatious. I believe I have my ducks in a row, but I'm also I believe I'm going to go out tomorrow. Tomorrow morning.
Given good weather. Knock on wood on that one. If it's pouring rain out there tomorrow, I'm probably best to stay inside.
But I thought I would get your thoughts on overcoming sort of a bit of stage fright, and because I'm worried that I might not work up the courage to actually get out and do this.
I recall a motivational poster I saw online once.
Oh, yeah?
It was, a nice D&D based one, as is very appropriate in this one, and it goes. Sometimes all you can do is say, forget it, draw your sword and see what happens. So sometimes you just have to ignore all the butterflies in your stomach, all the what if it doesn't work, what if nobody gets what I'm doing, and just go out and try it anyways.
Okay.
And I gotta say, in my line of work, I come up with a nice amount of lines to interact with the customers and all that, corny jokes here and there. Do I know which ones are going to work? Do I know which person winds up laughing at it? Because sometimes I'll give a line and it's like... the person is completely stone-faced, like, yeah, whatever. Other times, the person just cracks up with laughter. I have told the right joke in the right way. Perfect. Do I know which one is going to work with the first time I tell that joke? Nope. But I got to try it. I got to do it. I got to keep rehearsing. I got to keep practicing at it until I can deliver the line, just right off the cuff sort of thing. And an off the cuff always gets a much better response, I've noticed, than something that's clearly a line.
Okay.
Unless you go so far around the horn that you're clearly giving them a line, sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes you just gotta say, you know what, I'm gonna do it, and if it doesn't wind up working well, I'm gonna say, well, that was just the experience building part. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna figure out what seemed to work, what didn't, collect myself together, and try it again.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. That helps. And I'll get experience points either way.
Yeah, exactly. That said, it might also behoove you to do it in the proper locations. There are some areas on Johnson Street that are much more nerd accessed, and much more nerd-friendly because of the businesses in the area.
Yeah, we have a couple of gaming stores down on there.
The Illusions second-hand shop sort of thing has got a nice mix between stoner paraphernalia and fiction-type stuff, so you'd be able to get people that are much more into it sort of thing. That said, that area might be a little bit too busy during the busy parts of the day.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, the other thing is I just have to see how it goes, but I am wondering what sort of crowd I'm going to gather, because if I gather like 3 or 4 people, then there's a lot more spaces around town where, a crowd, 3 or 4 people, most streets you can sort of fit that. But if it turns out to be like really popular, and if somehow I draw more people, which, I mean,
you get some spectators.
I kind of don't expect that, but also, like, what if it happened that a whole bunch of people
slay the orc with his crossbow?
Actually, I'm almost certain it won't happen, but I do worry that might cause an obstruction, and then I get in trouble. But I guess if I get in trouble, I mean, what's the worst they can do? They can
revoke your busker's license.
Yeah. I don't know if they have to refund me for that, too.
Probably not.
Yeah. Oh, well. Anyways, yeah, I guess
you will lose 1 die 4 levels, Josh.
I guess, yeah, it's running into...
You have to make a fortitude save 24 hours later to see if it's a temporary loss or permanent.
So I guess I'm sort of asking, like, you and the listeners to sort of check in with me next week and see if I actually did it or chickened out. And how it went.
Well, here's the thing. At least you're considering it, because there's a lot of people that come up with a good idea and then they just never do anything.
Yeah.
I believe the good saying is 90% of all the great ideas lay with the thought, or lay with the thinker in their grave. A lot of people think good things. Most people don't carry on through. So at least you've got, like as you said, all your ducks in a row. You've got everything lined up. You're that much, head and shoulders above what other people have thought and not done. So there you go.
Cool. Well,
and use that as your thought. It's like, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm already that far.
And I suppose, like, if you're a listener who also lives in Victoria, if people are listening,
stalk the streets, find the rogue dungeon master of the alleys.
Yeah, keep an eye out for me, like in the Victoria sort of downtownish area. And
if you're a bit of an older, sort of player, I will note Josh does not actually look like the dungeon master from the old cartoon back in the 80s. He's a real person, not like Yoda in a human suit.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm gonna have a red, like medieval, like what do you call it? It's got like a long scarfy thing coming off the hat. So it's a red hat with sort of a scarfy thing. So that should make me sort of identify.
Stand out.
Yeah.
Amongst all the other people playing Dungeons and Dragons in the street,
Well, the thing about Dungeons and Dragons is it's you're not juggling anything and you're not playing a musical instrument, so it looks like you're just sort of standing there. Which that's kind of a crutch in itself, or a lack of a crutch, or those things are crutches, I guess. In that, like, usually when people go out, in the streets to be a street performer entertainer, they have. I mean, I have my props, but I don't have anything that's like that I'm holding constantly. I guess I don't have an instrument that's like, here's my instrument, I'm doing the instrument, or here's my juggling balls, I'm juggling these things. It's very.
Well, I suppose you get some large plush dice and juggle them as you narrate the story.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I'm not very good at juggling. I've been trying to practice a little bit. But
it is rather hard, but once you get that just coordination in to do it without thinking, you'd be surprised at how often apparently, I've never got to that stage myself.
Actually, if we can keep on talking about me and my... I have been thinking that would actually be a useful thing to just juggle sort of in between, and that would get people at least, he's doing something, other than just me sort of standing there. So if I could just start juggling and then transition from that into playing D&D, I think that could actually work. So I'm going to probably add that in, assuming all goes...
as skills and time permits.
Yeah. Okay. So,
all right. So one last final bit of advice, though, for you. Just make sure that what you're doing doesn't wind up looking somehow like a game of craps breaks out in the street.
Yeah, true.
So just make sure that's not happening there, and then everything should flow smoothly. The cops shouldn't come by asking what's going on. Although if you can get the cops into the gaming sort of thing, well, there's a feather in your cap there.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the dice tucked away in a pouch here, and I'm probably going to bring out one die at a time, kind of deal. Like
as needed, not just leave them all strung out in the streets or thing.
So just do one and then put it away to tell stories or whatever. And
see,
also,
you know what's a shame though is you know that one board game like what was it Sorry? No, one of the other ones. Instead of having a just a roll of dice, they had a little popper. You push the dome at the top.
Oh,
and
Trouble.
Trouble, that's the one, and it would pop, and the die would go around. It would be nice if you could have somehow put other dice in there besides that 6-sider.
Oh, I imagine you could hack it.
Yeah, but would it roll quite so well afterwards is the big question. But if you could wind up doing that, then you could have that nice security. You just have them all sewn onto like a strip, and then you just roll them all out, and you need the 21 that's at the far end there, and they bop it, and it rolls itself. That's a 17.
That'd be great.
That way you wouldn't have to worry about somebody stepping on them, somebody trying to steal them, because they're all together or they're all in one.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little visual display that draws people in. It's like, oh, what's he got there? It's like a 6-card Monty, except everything's clear and visible.
I like the thought too that I could use my foot with them too.
Tap it on there.
A pedal thing, kind of.
So yeah, it's a nice option. If things go well, you'd invest in the future and have your own little thing set up.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So that's what I've been up to in simulations, or planning simulations, anyways.
Well, it's much more active than mine's been. Mine's been much more research passive this week.
Oh, that's good.
They changed stuff in the Marvel game I'm playing. It used to be that you got 1 point of energy every minute, which admittedly was a little too sweet. When I was playing, it would take me about as much time to use up the energy as it took to get the energy. So I'd always be working on maximum energy. And so if I'm able to play for an infinite amount of time without really running out of any resources, a little nerfed, or should be nerfed for a game, especially on Facebook. And so they wound up doing that just as I was getting ready to sit down for a 4-hour mass gaming session. And it's like, oh, now I have to wait 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Because they have different people into different groups, and they're saying who's having the most fun, and they'll settle on down as to like maybe every 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Some people are up at the whole 6-end range. But it's causing a lot of anger on the forums, I've noticed, this week. Because, well, they have different maps, sort of thing. You know, like they've got something like 200 different maps for people to be in. Because if you put everyone on one map, it would just be too complex, burn out the server. But not everybody on that map has the same energy recharge. So if somebody attacks you, and you're regenerating 1 point of energy every 6 minutes, it's going to take you 6 times 10, 1 hour to get in one attack back. But if they're under the 1 every 2 minutes sort of thing, it's only going to take them 20 minutes. So every time you make an attack, they can attack you back 3 times. Yeah. And that's causing some anger.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Like, I can't play the game because every time I try and do something, I'm getting 3 of my buildings go up in flames.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Little game balance issues, but do you expect it'll be changed?
I expect it should be unified, hopefully soon. I don't know how well unified it'll wind up being. Maybe they'll at least, bunch everyone by shard type, it was, shard instead of map sort of thing. And that way it should at least make things equal amongst, who's attacking you and how you can attack back sort of thing, ideally. But as that was going on, I have time. It's like, I've got 7, 8 points. I got to wait now 12 minutes before I can finish off my energy and go off and do other things. So I'm waiting, and I'm thinking, and I'm looking at the side. It's like, there's another Facebook game. It's called Mutants, Genetic Gladiators. And it's like, well, at least this has an interesting name, a little art on there. I'm not actually going to click it to play it, but I am intrigued. Does this thing have a wiki? Because I scroll over it and it's like, 1 million people are playing this. And it's like, apparently, yeah, they do have a wiki, and it's wonderfully developed and well written. And I noticed in that one, from what I was reading on there, you crossbreed your mutants and all that, and there's different genes, 6 different types.
Okay. Yeah.
And looking up at that, it's you've got apparently martial arts is a genetic ability in this game. So you got saber genes versus like animal-based genes for creatures that look like an animal. Necro genes, because apparently you can be dead or undead and still sire offspring. I don't want to think too difficult and too deep into that one.
Okay, well, yeah, I can imagine, but I don't need to imagine.
I assume all this combining actually takes place in some sort of like laboratory thing where they just, like toss chunks of skin and bombard it until something grows out of it. Cause
oh, yeah.
the art lends itself to that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They also have mythic genes and like galactic genes. If you want something space type alien, for whatever gladiator you've got, you're going to need some galactic genes. If you want something that looks like it came out of history, you want mythic genes. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, that's actually an interesting concept. You basically have 5 different, themes, and you cross-combine them.
Oh, yeah.
And then pops up, it's like Spider-Man pops up, because I got 10 energy finally. I go into attack, and Spider-Man says something just before I attack. And so I was like, well, Spider-Man. Spider is an animal. And Spider-Man's a heavy pro-science guy. He's a science nerd. And so, from this perspective of the Mutants game, Spider-Man, as, like a thing, would wind up being, a zoanthrope. And, well, science isn't one, but I suppose it'd be like galactic sort of thing to combine the weird alien science stuff.
Okay.
And it occurs to me, it's like, a lot of the world settings, DC, Marvel, and all that, have very wide range sort of things. So you can have an issue where, you've got a mutant combined with a technological genius, you've got a supernatural being, and, like some other, fourth, empties, slots sort of thing to round out a group, and you can have them be very separate and all come together. And sometimes that doesn't really work well. I remember a perennial problem in DC, like, they say, oh, vampires don't exist. But, just like 2 months ago, the Justice League fought an entire, world-spanning conglomerate of vampires. And so, I actually remember a line in the Plastic Man comic book is like, oh, I don't believe vampires exist, even though me and my, Justice League friends recently busted up an entire, a cabal of them not more than 2 months ago. And he actually says that out loud, because, he was part of that. And so the palette for them is so wide-ranging. There's so many of the different themes going on. They have a hard time reconciling everything together. But this one game, it says, no, okay, yeah, you can have all sorts of weird things, all sorts of stuff, but it has to break itself down into 5 main themes. And these are the 5 threads they weave their creatures and their stories and all that out of. And I like that. I believe you could have a very nice, cohesive setting just by taking a few themes and just putting them all together sort of thing. And, D&D is basically like that. You go with swords, sorcery, and, let's go, we'll go mythic in this case. We'll take the one from the example, mythic, to create your clerics and your demons and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And that creates your little Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting. But you could change one thing out, and you could make it like a low magic campaign. So you cut out the magic stuff, you get rid of the mythic, and replace that with, we'll go galactic. You have demons, but they're not really, like demonic creatures. They're just aliens. They're just horribly looking, nasty creatures that happen to like human brains. And so you work up that way. And that works perfectly wonderfully well. And so I had a lot of time just sitting down thinking, like, main themes, and just being able to reduce this theme to one word. Like, there you go. And you take 2, 3, 5, doesn't matter how many, just take whatever you're doing. I'm talking to you out there listening to us. Take whatever little piece of fiction you're working and see what themes do I have, and how can I reduce that down to, just as concise a way of explaining it as possible. Maybe it turns a little bit more simplified than you prefer. Spider-Man is more than just animals, creatures he's fighting in science. But those are big general themes with him. And so, if you want to explain Spider-Man to someone who has somehow never seen or heard anything about Spider-Man in the last 50 years, that's how you explain it. He's kind of like an animal, based powers guy who uses science when, his natural abilities fail him, and he saves the day while angering his boss. Because J. Jonah Jameson is just the absolute best when he's at his absolute angriest. Let's all admit that.
Yeah.
And so, that was my one big thing this week. Other than that, I learned about the Sibulia. Does the name sound familiar at all to you?
Sibulia. Well, it sounds like a character from Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
No. That might be Sebulba.
Okay.
Sibulia is referenced once in the Ghostbusters movie.
Is Sibulia a No, that's sativa.
It's a drug.
A plant that you can smoke.
Yeah. But no, it's Gozer the Gozerian is also referenced by the title Dark Lord of the Sibulia.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
And that, that's one of the things I've always remembered.
Probably the opposite of sweet, I'm guessing.
Well, that's an interesting thing, but I'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm, paying attention when my wife shows her on, and she's got like a cooking thing, and they mention Sibulius. The Dark Lord of the Sibulius. Like, what's going on? What is that? And I ask her on that, and she goes, well, that means onion. So by pure random happenstance, Dan Aykroyd has said that Gozer the Gozerian is the Dark Lord of onions.
I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't entirely happenstance. I have no evidence to back that up, but I would...
Well, that's what I'm wondering. It's like, well, what did he intention? So I, Google foo up Sibulia. And hey, there's a Ghostbusters wiki. And I love these little wikis that have just very nice focus stuff so that you can figure out and not have to okay, it was, mentioned on the Wikipedia. It's like, oh, you got to check out the 1983 draft of it. But that's all we're going to tell you. Because the more personalized, focused wikis can have the extra room to explain things.
Yeah.
And what was the Sibulia? The Sibulia was a pre-Sumerian group of people. They were heavy into sin, and Gozer punished them for that by killing every one of them. Okay. Some of the records do exist in Sumerian text.
So this is sort of real world.
They don't actually exist.
Oh, okay.
They're a fake tribe made up for the whole thing and all that.
Well, it's plausible to me, except for the Gozer being a real person who wipes people out. But that could be like a volcano or a plague of some kind. But
yeah, they reference the whole thing. They do a mention, and there's even the lines as used in the reference section, and apparently Winston even back then was pretty good at changing languages from one to another. Because one of the lines is him translating some of the stuff, and then Egon takes over when he can't say, they were punished for the sins of their, this is either shoes or cities, I'm not certain which, and then Egon picks up, the sins of their cities, yes. So, hey, everyone thinks of him as the blue-collar guy, but no, he actually is apparently smart enough to be able to translate nearly on par with Egon, and that was before he wound up getting his doctorate degree, as we learn in the Ghostbusters video game that came out.
Oh, yeah.
So, hooray! But yeah, I wound up learning about the Sibulia as a concept and all that, and just by pure happenstance, because I hear, my wife's show talk about it, in Tagalog it means onion, but it never intentionally meant to be that, or I'll have to ask, Dan Aykroyd, if and when I ever see him.
Yeah.
By the way...
If he's listening.
Yeah. By the way, Sibulia, was that meant to be onions, or was that just pure randomness?
Yeah, so Dan Aykroyd, if you're listening, send us email, thesimulationist@gmail.com.
Or, just put this out in the open, make it, just do a little bit, toss it up on YouTube and let everyone know. Sibulia actually means this in other languages. I meant for it to be this. Now you know, and you just do a little, the more you know sort of thing going up over the top. You could have fun with it. He's the kind of guy who seems like he'd have fun with that sort of thing. Put out a little bit of like a 2-minute infomercial sort of thing.
That sounds fun, yeah.
Yeah.
It's educational too, kind of. Educational about a fictional universe, but sure.
Faux educational? I do know he loves his Ghostbuster universe. He clearly thinks of it dearly, so.
Yeah.
So, favorable odds, I suppose, of him doing that if he ever hears about it.
Cool.
But yeah, that was my thing, is learning up about just the one line mentioned, and then it winds up being 3 or 4 paragraphs, out there later on, and it is developed. And for those who do pay attention to that sort of thing, it does become more, because I do know, let's see, there was one line mentioned elsewhere in the movie, he was eaten alive by, a great big torg, he knew what it was like to roast in the bowel of a torg that day, I can tell you. Yeah, you know the line, that Rick Moranis gives. In the Ghostbusters video game, they actually have the torg is a beast. They actually show what the heck a torg is. It's not just a random word that he just made up on the fly. Mm-hmm. And so, it all winds up knitting together for those who pay attention and start figuring out what's going on with all of this stuff.
Well, it's kind of like we had our own little word of the day.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that there was more mentioned in there that never wound up being in the movie. Like at the top of the building, you know, when the doors open and there's Gozer's temple on the other side of the dimensional barrier.
Yeah.
That entire thing up there, that was a Sibylian temple.
Oh.
It never wound up getting mentioned, but that was a perfect recreation of a Sibylian temple. So now you know a little bit about Sibylian artwork.
Yeah.
That's the most anyone's ever seen of their artwork because they technically don't exist. That's their architecture and everything up there.
Interesting.
So now I want to do a little bit of Conan fan fiction where the Sibylian tribe is mentioned.
That'd be awesome.
That would be...
Tie in Conan with Ghostbusters?
See, and then this is why I need a time machine. I know you're not a time traveler because if you were, we would go back and we would talk to Howard and we would be able to have him slip in a Sibylia reference in one or two of his stories and totally blow everyone's mind when they later on, like in, I suppose, 1990, someone's reading through Conan stuff and then, Sibylia with their Dark Lord and something about a Gozerian. Oh my god!
I like that. That's what, instead of like, do I bring up? Okay, instead of killing Hitler.
Of all the things we could do.
Yeah. Although I have seen, where was it? It's probably Cracked or something. Had an article on why you actually probably shouldn't kill Hitler if you get a time machine, simply because that would. You never know, it might disturb things even worse, and somebody worse might take power or something like
that. Well, here's my perspective on things. My daughter was conceived in March of 2012. So that is my latest limit for what I want to do to change anything that might affect how things progress in the line. Because I love my daughter dearly, and I don't want her to be accidentally wiped out because I changed history somehow.
Okay.
Now, I don't believe it would change history by having, Robert Howard mention the Sibylia as a tribe in Conan's Hyborian age.
Well,
so I think I can get away with that.
I imagine we could probably sit here and think of ways that it might affect, but maybe that would be a waste of time. Let that be an exercise for the listeners. And they can...
What is the maximum amount of change you can cause throughout history without accidentally erasing your own existence?
There you go.
Because I think if you're even contemplating time travel, it's just a basic fun thing. That might be something you definitely want to consider. It's like there are ramifications to your actions. Mm-hmm. Try not to make sure you don't set about an eternal time loop where you decreate yourself and thus create a timeline flickering back and forth between you existing and not existing.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm willing to bet the universe doesn't like flickering back between these quantum states of you existing and not existing because there's a lot of reality that doesn't care whether or not you exist. Everywhere off of Earth, for instance, it doesn't matter whether you exist or not exist. So the reality is that you're causing a lot more pain by accidentally wiping out your existence. So knock it off.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, if it's a multiverse sort of thing, you can go back in time, but you'd only be affecting another, like, not your own timeline. But I guess there's no point.
Or it winds up you becoming detached from time. You can go back to your present time, but you don't exist, and you're just kind of like surgically excised from history.
Yeah, that could happen.
You're not the man without a name. You're the man without a past.
Yeah,
or lady. Let's not be sexist as to who can go back in time.
I guess you retain your material body, and your memories are stored in your neurons. So basically, you retain your memories.
Everything you remember happened until you did something to change it. No one else remembers because it never happened for them.
Yeah, but you were outside time.
It's the easiest way to have you change time and then, still exist without things going weird. That said, it's still not a stable time loop, so don't go mucking about with unstable time loops. I don't know. I do know that no matter how many weird things of situations we come up where you can never touch a person because you can never fully go to them because with the whole Zeno's paradox thing.
Mm-hmm.
Paradox doesn't actually exist because you can touch everything. As the stoners say, your hands can touch everything, including each other. So, the Zeno's paradox, you can state as a thing, but it doesn't actually exist because you can make it from A to B. You don't have to, go the infinite number of half distances.
Okay.
So the universe has some sort of paradox, decoupling. You can think of a paradox, but it doesn't actually happen.
Yeah.
That said, I don't want to know how it resolves time travel paradoxes. So let's not figure out the answer, just in case it doesn't have it.
Yeah, well, I mean, for everything that I've ever read about like time machines is that they require sort of areas of space like almost the size of the solar system, and you need like an infinite length cord, or I don't know if it's cord or a field of energy that goes forever in either direction, one of two directions. So. And then it has to spin or something, so it's pretty...
well, see, that's the thing, is that's based off of our current technology level. I'm fairly certain you will remember a nice little movie called, let's see, what was it? The Back to the Future trilogy, where Doc Brown needs the better half of a barn to set up a device that will make ice cubes for him. When in our age, that's something you just toss in the fridge part of your little household refrigerator.
Yeah, I remember that. That's a nice illustration of... It both miniaturizes the fridge, and it's like it tells the readers, oh yeah, a fridge could be miniaturized, and then it leads to the point of, well, it becomes
so mundane you don't even think about it. It's just ice cubes come out of the freezer part.
Yeah, and then it's not much of a leap to say, well, maybe Doc Brown could do the same sort of miniaturization with time travel technology, and you could have a time travel watch instead of a DeLorean or something like that.
I think that would be even worse, though. I mean, the DeLorean got into enough trouble as it is. Having a watch, something so much more eminently losable, is not
great for stories.
Great for stories, bad for making sure you get back on time, as the saying goes.
How ironic that a watch would cause you to not be on
not get anywhere on time, in time, through time.
I like the idea of like an unwatch, like a cursed watch. Maybe that could be like in a fantasy campaign. You get a watch and it forces you to
chronically
always be late. No matter what you set the watch to, no matter how early you set out for.
Well, it's not bad. It's like a magic item sort of thing. Is what it meant to be was, the guy was always late naturally, and what happened was the guy tried to make a magic item that would force him to always be early, just to make sure he gets where he's going on time.
And then the gods of time were like, you can't do that.
But this guy was so bad at being anywhere on time, he broke the magic and cursed the thing, and then anyone who had the watch thereafter winds up being forever late. Although once per day you can cast a haste spell on you and allies. So, hey, not bad.
Oh, I like it.
You're just always like 1 die 4 times 10 minutes late to whatever meeting you're supposed to be at.
I imagine it would probably be artifact level power, just considering like how powerful that is. Although you might have
a haste spell and then some sort of
defeat or something.
Some sort of mental effect sort of thing, like a geas or charm sort of thing that winds up making you so that I should probably leave right now, but I really should do those dishes. It doesn't matter. I'm going to meet the king in 20 minutes. I got to leave now, but those dishes should probably be done now. It's like a mental compulsion. Oh, and that's why you're 1 die 4 times 10 minutes late. You had to do dishes.
All right.
So, yeah.
But, like if you left, 4 hours early or something, I'm definitely going to be there. Like, what does the watch, cause you to wander
You
off?
encounter a random dungeon master playing games in the street, and you wind up gaming extra late, and you're still late even though you left 4 hours early.
That's true, yeah.
There you go. So, yeah, that was my week. Lots of learning and mental introspective and thought this week.
Good. Mental, that keeps you sharp.
Should keep me sharp. I will note I was a little late for arriving at your place today, so apparently I've been slightly cursed this week.
Yeah, and the podcast will come out
a little later because of it. Yeah. So if you're the kind of person that wants to get it as soon as it comes out, and it comes out a little late, I can completely take responsibility, but I'm not reimbursing you. Or actually, I'll reimburse you 100% of what you paid for this podcast.
Hopefully someone didn't pay someone else for this podcast.
Well, if they do, we deserve at least a cut, in which case I'll give you my share of the cut.
That'd be nice to find out about. Okay, so...
Yeah. But that was my week, is this mental introspective and learning about something from a movie from 1984 that was just a one-off line to make the big bad sound bigger and badder.
Mm-hmm.
That said, 5th edition is coming out. I wouldn't mind seeing stats for Gozer the Gozerian as a deity or demi-deity and what sort of portfolios it might possess.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Well, is that worth mentioning as an item? I guess probably our listeners probably already know that D&D 5th.
It's just on the verge. I mean,
box set, right?
Yeah, the box set I believe drops on the 15th of this upcoming month.
July.
So, it's, I believe it's $20, not including tax. So, start saving your pocket change. You should be able to afford it. If you're the kind of person that cracks a 10 every day for a latte, save your change, man.
Cool, yeah. And play
or just not have a few lattes for a week, from like the 1st of the month to the 15th, and yeah, you should be able to afford it, although you would be a little tired. So
and also give to charity and all that stuff too, whatever.
Well, only if you're a paladin, in which case you have to tithe 10%.
Yeah. Only if you're paladin. I suppose if you're evil aligned, don't worry about it. But you can, even evil people need to have fun and play games.
Well, yeah, I mean, just because you're evil doesn't mean you're like a stick in the mud.
And July, it's Canada Day coming up.
Yeah, on the Tuesday, and for our American people, the 4th of July happens on the Friday.
Yeah, so lots of cool stuff.
So we have a like a split long weekend, whereas our American comrades have the full long weekend.
Yeah.
And I have a sneeze.
Oh, bless you.
So I suppose you win this year, America, but we'll see who gets the long weekend next year.
Cool.
That said, my wife took a vacation day for Monday, so she's got a double weekend. She's got herself set up very nice, and I believe anyone who has vacation days on where they work should probably have done the same.
Yeah, so you have a 3-day work weekend buffered by 2 long weekends. Pretty nice.
Well, I like to call it a double weekend because there's like a long weekend for 3 days, but 4 days, that's a double weekend, and that sounds much better.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's going to make going to work on the Wednesday that much tougher. It's like, I just had 4 days off. I don't want to go to work.
That's true. It is always harder to go to work after a long, especially extra long weekend. Yeah. But
yeah, that's been the week in review.
Yes, for both of us.
Or preview, I suppose, for the upcoming stuff.
The weekend simulations for us, anyways.
So I believe a couple weeks ago you came up with an interesting idea, but we never got a chance to talk about it. So we should probably get going on that fairly soon before we forget the topic.
Yeah, well, we talked about it before the podcast. You mean the
concept of a nomadism versus a settled lifestyle.
Okay, we're doing nomadism.
Because, well, I mean, it seems to be that in 5th edition, those wonderful little halflings who are not hobbits are much more transient. That's one of the big key differences between halflings and hobbits. The hobbits wind up spending almost their entire lives in those wonderful little hobbit holes that are just wonderfully appointed, beautifully decorated houses.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you had a house like that, I mean, would you like to move away every couple of months from there? No.
Well, I mean, I guess it might get a little boring, but
every time you come back, you'd have to wind up dusting the whole thing. It's like, I just haven't been here in 6 months. It's all dusty, and next thing you know, you're dusting the whole place, and that gets annoying because I mean, dust shows up well on wood, so there you go. But meanwhile, the halflings are supposed to be a nomadic group of people. They're always going from one spot to another.
Like on riverboats, is that a thing? I think
sometimes riverboats, sometimes I suppose gypsy wagons. Sometimes they just go on ponyback. However they so desire, they tend to be a nomadic group of people.
Yep.
And so this is interesting for a few bits and reasons because I don't think it's ever really been discussed as to what their life is really like if they're always on the go.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm just thinking if I have a copy of.
The Races of series that might include them. I don't recall seeing much on that. Because the bit that gets me is one, by them being permanently nomadic, they are effectively a gypsy type species.
Yeah.
Which I don't suppose I really should use gypsy type species indicating gypsies are different people, but the halflings are.
Yeah, I don't know of another way to say it more succinctly. I'm
sure there's a technical term for a nomadic population that still has a high degree of culture and society about them.
Yeah.
But
so they do appear in
the
Races
Roma.
of the Wild, which in 3rd
one
edition,
of the few I do not have, sad to say.
I don't know if 4th edition, I don't feel like they did race books and like Races of in 4th edition.
No. Well, I must admit, my knowledge on 4th edition is very scant. I never got too deep into it. It wasn't my flavor. But it looks like they're going to be going back to that sort of thing. And
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it occurs to me, like in D&D, having a stable place tends to be a big thing. especially for like the spellcasters and the item makers. Because if you want to create a really nice, weapon, not even a magical sort of thing, you're going to have to spend some time sitting down at one place.
Well, I suppose weapons require forges or anvils and all that stuff. Anvil, forge, and other blacksmith tools.
The blacksmith tools themselves, I suppose, are pretty portable. Forge, not so much. I suppose you could always work up something about that, but...
Yeah, I haven't seen that in the arms and equipment guide, but I imagine there might be some supplement somewhere with like a portable, blacksmith shop in a caravan or something,
Or at least a thing where you can effectively just pick up most of it and go, and then it takes you like one day to permanently, to set up the thing so that you can work it properly and not burn everything around you.
Yeah, and now wizards, when they do
they make their magic items,
is it kind of like warts and toad's feet and newt's eyes?
Well, that was actually, in 3rd edition, was a little varied on that sort of thing.
Whatever you want it to be?
It's just, this much gold pieces worth of magical items, equipment stuff, pre-components and all that, you put it all together.
I guess you burn incense a little bit.
But you did require a stable, secure spot, very comfortable and well designed out, something like a 500 gold piece cost for it.
Okay. But I imagine, add on another 100 gold and it could be portable.
But there wasn't much rules on that, which is weird given that one of their basic races was nomadic.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff, like a potion takes you a day, so it's like, oh, dude, we got to stop here for the day. I need to make a potion so that if someone gets hurt, they can heal up. So, cure light wounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, there's no rules on that sort of thing for going on the go. Although I suppose, you're only supposed to be doing that sort of magic item creation for 8 hours a day. So you travel for 8 hours, let your horses rest, and then you do like 8 hours in your caravan thing.
Yeah, as long
8
as
hours sleep.
Sort of somebody else is taking care of meals and watch and...
Well, if you're rich enough to be making these magic items, you're rich enough to be able to afford a cook, and and like a taskmaster, I suppose is the decent term for it.
Is there a penalty for not eating, during it for one day in D&D? I think there's hunger, right? But I don't know if one day is enough.
Well, that's the thing is I have to sit down and double check these rules, because I do know in D&D there's not much for rules for going without food. A little bit, not much food for starvation.
I think it's like a constitution check every day or something.
I do know there's penalties for a lack of sleep, but that doesn't take place until potentially up to a week after, depending on your constitution score.
We've talked about that.
But see, that's the thing is I've got so many games, knowledge stored up in my head. It crosses over. Like when you're doing trying to increase your spell category focus in Shadowrun, you can't eat, drink, or basically do anything else. Okay, sometimes if you're a shaman sort of thing and you're doing stuff right, you get a chance to really get loaded and drink for 5-6 days, and that's about it. You just do your magical ritual.
Some peyote too.
Depending on how your system goes, it's actually very personal. So you could be like a hermetic mage sort of thing, and your hermetic stuff is getting absolutely completely sloshed in rememorizing the rules of how magic works. Potentially, some peyote mind expanding stuff allows you to understand the nature of magic better. That's all you have to explain. The cost still winds up being the same for the components, but you basically wake up, do your magical whatever it is that completely exhausts you, and catch minimal amount of sleep. You're not getting even a 4-hour stance sort of thing. You're up and you are working hard. So the rules bleed back and forth for me sometimes.
Yeah.
Although I really do admit I love the style going on with that. With the Dungeons and Dragons, it's like, oh, I am going to research a spell. I sit here and copy notes for so many days, and there's no constitution check because you're not physically exhausting yourself. Shadowrun, you can lose consciousness and pass out from just studying too hard. That is hardcore. I like that.
I like it story-wise. I don't know if it fits into the sort of the pace of the game, but that's its own issue.
Well, that's the sort of thing is you could wind up you had everything, you spent your karma points, but you weren't able to physically be there long enough to get the spell. You might want to consider someone else helping you out by giving you a buff to your stat for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
or at least heal you up, sort of thing, because you take fatigue damage for being like awake for like 6 days in a row. Because I mean, conceivably, because they have fun with the rules. So like drinking, like getting sloshed and learning like stuff and getting high for 6 days is a legitimate way of expanding your magical power. It's fun. But yeah, you can just absolutely just pass out from overexertion from like a week-long study party session. And I wouldn't mind seeing something like that in D&D. So my mind says, well, why not toss some rules over, convert. So I have to make sure when I'm reading 5th edition I really focus in so that I can cement it in my head and not have rules bleed happening.
One of the other things I like about nomadism in D&D is that you can have dynamic landscapes. Like, how in World of Warcraft the same, like the crossroads is always the same every time you go there?
Sometimes it's getting raided, sometimes the NPCs are dead because of those damn dirty Alliance.
Yeah, but the buildings are always the same, and even the carts are always still in the same spot.
I would like it if they could move a little bit more. I will say that. I think if they had put the crossroads as like a PvP zone and you could actually burn down the crossroads sort of thing.
That'd be awesome.
That would be pretty awesome.
But yeah, of course, the advantage of Dungeons and Dragons in particular is because anything goes. And you could have like a sort of empty plain one day, and then the next day, a little town pops up there.
So you just a temporary, town sort of thing. It's the Darren's Instant Fortress sort of thing. It's like a cube. You push the right buttons and pop, big old tower.
Yeah.
So you can have something not quite that magical, but just, pop out a series of houses. I do know there's a few spells, 10-minute casting time, but bam, there's a house for you for a day.
I like the thought, too. Like, imagine if, sort of player characters are trudging across a wilderness landscape, and they're like, okay, we'll camp here for a night, looks like a good spot. And then sort of they wake up in the morning, and they're just surrounded by, caravans.
That happened to Tintin, right?
Oh yeah, I think I might be remembering.
Yeah, in his America
one of those
stuff.
comics. Yeah.
He goes to sleep in a plane and is like, oh, there's oil and all that, and then all of a sudden, bam, he wakes up and it's like a town. It's a hyperbole, of course, but it does illustrate like how quickly towns popped up in North America, which like scared the bejesus out of everyone in Europe. It's like, what do you mean there's a town there? How many thousand people are? There was nothing there like 10 years ago when you surveyed, right? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Because in Europe you might have a town that's been there for 1,000 years.
Like London used to be Londinium. It's been around since before the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
And like towns just always are. In England, it's like, wait, what do you mean? There's a town. There's like 10,000 people there now. What happened? I suppose that is a bit of a culture shock system, and that's what Hurge was doing when he was making the hyperbole. Mm-hmm. Wakes up and there's a town, and how he slept through them building the entire town.
Must have been really drunk. No,
he was pretty darn fatigued, though.
Tintin doesn't get, or does he get drunk? I think he sometimes does.
On rare occasions, sometimes drugged, sometimes drunk.
Captain Haddock is always drunk, though.
Well, he starts off pretty drunk. He manages to gain a decent level of sobriety. That said, he does enjoy his alcohol.
Right.
It's a character flaw / quirk sort of thing, depending on how it wants to be written.
Yeah.
But yeah, as the sort of thing is you could have that sort of thing happen. And here's the thing is I would like to see, especially with regards to halflings, some more variations on the spell for, like the Leomund's tiny hut that you can cast. And there's a thing like that. Why not have Leomund's tiny smithy? And that way you don't have to worry about like, how are we going to smith the stuff? Is cast the spell, pop, there it is. One day, some longer durations going on, and so you could have like this entire halfling group of spells where they can effectively pop a town up wherever it is they are.
Yeah, although when you start talking about magical items, for some reason my mind goes to gnomes, but that might just be...
Gnomes like the magical items with good functionality, and this would be their good forte. So I suppose you could wind up doing like a nice history. Like here's the halfling book of magic spells, But there was also some nice gnomish involvement because the two half-size races work really well together, especially in this particular focus. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would love to see some wonderful work done on that, but no one seemed to have put out a splat book on that I've heard of yet, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Because you could have a nice little bit of like chain spells, and you could have like your, oh yes, I'm a 17th level wizard, and wherever I go, as I adventure, I bring a lot of people with me, and then at the end of the day, I just blow out my access spells, and bam, I create a town wherever I am. Pick a name for a wizard, Josh.
Townsend.
I am Townsend the Civilized, Townsend the Urban. Wherever I go, I take the culture with me. It is mine, and I make the town every time. I remake it daily to my designs, but don't worry to the druids,
You should have a Z in his name. Maybe Zounson.
Zounson, yes, I am Zounson the Civilized. And don't worry to the druids, though, because
Zounson
when I leave,
civilized.
the town leaves with me.
Yeah.
And I think that creates a very interesting character sort of thing, and that's a wizard people will remember.
Mm-hmm.
He took a town with him wherever he went, where he would sleep out in the wilderness, but never actually in the wilderness. He always had a wonderful, magnificent bed to sleep in every night.
Yeah, well, I remember that from, I think Monty Cook did one with Malhavoc. His
imprint, yes,
has a spell that's like makes sure you're warm and dry all the time or something. I can't remember what
I did like his the style of his spells. It's like, yes, this is something somebody would create because it seems like something they would want.
Yeah.
The prestidigitation spell will clean up all the gunk after you've been adventuring in the sewers, but, when you're out and about and you've been trogging through the rain, going to the dungeon for a week and all that, you want a spell that makes you dry. So here's a nice level, like a 0-level spell that makes sure your clothes don't get wet. Fun little things.
Yep. And of course there's, classic trope of planeswalkers.
Planeswalkers, yes. The world spanners sort of thing, whatever you want to term them.
They're not even confined to a single realm. But
they traverse the myriad planes of reality itself.
Yeah.
Each stride for them a different world, so as in the poetic license.
And okay, here's another thing about nomadism is, are they kind of somewhat associated with malice and trickery, I suppose, as because civilization is often seen as sort of good. Do you think like nomads are associated with? Are they rightly associated with evil? Do you think, or how should you use that in your?
Well, I think it ends up working being that when you're in a town, the people around you. Ideally, I will admit I'm a little hazy as to who my tenant mates are in my apartment complex.
Yeah, well, that's city life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, ideally, you should know, or at least recognize the people who live near you sort of thing, if you spend enough time out and about in your neighborhood. But if you see a strange person, that's a stranger. That's why, strange and stranger is so close, man. It's not like, foreigner. They term the word stranger. You are not like us. You are strange. You are a stranger. And so, that clearly indicates at least the default mental mindset for people here is that if you're not with us, maybe you're against us by general basic line of thought. And so, not always rightly, some people are just born wanderers. Some people just want to keep seeing what's over there.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's kind of more along the lines of the adventurers.
Yeah.
They have that sort of wanderlust spirit in them almost.
But they have the same appearance as those who keep getting run out of town for the stuff they've done. They have to see what's over there, because if they stick around here, there's either pitchforks and torches or jail and gallows waiting for them, so they have to keep moving. And so you can't always tell the difference between the two when you're looking at this different person walking down the road all of a sudden. And so maybe cautiously, but not always correctly perceived as being wrong or evil or outsider.
Yeah. Well, and of course the DM can use that. You can have actual threats sort of come from outside.
I wouldn't mind seeing a nice basic campaign situation where if you are new to a town, you've got a penalty to your charisma until, like a week, you spend there and people get a chance to know you, and then the penalty goes away because you're not so much a stranger. You're at least, he hasn't burned down the town in a week. He gets drunk at night, but he doesn't start fights. He killed those goblins when they tried attacking.
Yeah.
Let's not charge him extra for his stuff.
Well, yeah, and my experience with games and the players entering towns is both as a DM and as a player, I've experienced this, is that the adventurers tend to be pretty popular in like civilized towns, unless they do their own their shady acts if they do something.
If they
bad.
get caught doing what many adventurers wind up doing,
But
yeah.
Even then, often what they do is they just fast talk their way out of it, and they end up just being super popular with the populace.
And that's the bonus of having a good charisma score for at least one member of the group.
Yeah.
It also helps if they're voluntarily peace bonding their weapons, sort of thing. You know?
Yeah, they can do those little gestures of good faith.
Gestures of I'm not going to just pop like a vein and start killing everyone, sort of thing.
But that's why we have things like handshakes and waves and
Yeah, well,
salutes.
The wave sort of thing started off as just like, hey, I'm unarmed, sort of thing, and opening up the visor to show who you are.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, I mean, the whole, like, I show you who I am sort of thing, like, I'm not hiding my face, I'm not hiding who I am. You could work that the other way. It's like, if you're a stranger to town, you have to come in naked. You don't get close until later on once we've proven it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Interesting little regional quirk sort of thing. Foreigners must be naked for the first 2 days. They're allowed to bring their stuff with them, they just can't wear it. Maybe we would have to work in a more of a tropical climate.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening with the Nordic type people.
Yeah.
Unless everyone's like a badass normal where you can walk around, when it's snow walking and you're just in the buff.
Well, I can. Yeah, I'm picturing the guys like in their the sauna who like run out of the sauna and jump in the freezing cold water, but they don't usually swim for very long.
No, they just dive into loosen up the pores and get everything going back in, and they hop back in again.
Although haven't people died basically from that?
When they don't do it right. I mean, you don't just do that, from out of nowhere. You got to build up to that. Otherwise, it might be too much of a shock for your weak little civilized heart, sort of thing.
Yeah. So maybe before you go and do that, the whole Finnish or Swedish, maybe both actually.
It's basically Nordic, but the Finns really encapsulate that.
You probably want to do your research before you go. Go ahead.
Spend some time, go for a run, go for a jog. Make sure your heart's ready to take a sudden, oof of stress and shock to it. Because we don't want to be held responsible for telling you to do it and then having you die. We absolve ourselves of responsibility. Consult your physician.
And that's funny because Finns and Swedes are not very similar in a lot because they're quite adamant that they're different, but I think they
there's
share
the thing
something.
is they're different in the same way siblings are different. They're very close, but it is their differences that help highlight them, sort of thing. That said, no, I hate to tell you guys this, you're pretty close. You're on the same wavelength in a lot of ways. Sorry, I hate to break the news to you, but there it is. It's out in the open now. You all know it.
They're both European. I mean, yeah.
Both part of the Scandinavian area. They've got a nice mindset.
No, that's the thing. Arguing, but Finland is not Scandinavian. It is more like kind of.
It's actually part of the Scandinavian
Russia.
groups, sort of thing. They qualify historically.
Well,
some parts genetically, not all of them, I believe.
Well, I believe that because I think most countries are very mixed genetically, so it's not a surprise there. But
they do count as part of the Nordic Council, sort of thing.
If you want,
which, by the way, is not actually as cool as it seems. The Nordic Council is a real thing, but it's not like 12 really burly, hairy, bearded guys, standing, proclaiming things, like judges. No, the Nordic Council is just a bunch of diplomats together, and it's.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like it's like. You face the Nordic Council, and what do you imagine? You imagine like these giant bearded guys, backlit.
Thor and Odin.
Exactly. You imagine them with a nice backlit, and they're 12 feet high. With the stands and all that as they're sitting like judges. No, the Nordic Council is not quite so awesome. But they do have possibly the most badass name you can see.
Well, yeah, Nordic is Nordic. Almost everything that's Nordic is pretty awesome, except for Nordic track. That sounds kind of lame. But other than that, add Nordic to almost Nordic metal, Nordic
cucumber. Go with foods like which would you rather eat? Would you rather eat a bushel of carrots or a bushel of Nordic carrots?
Definitely. Well, Nordic carrots sound like kind of like they'd be tiny and kind of green or something.
I picture them being hard enough you could stab someone with. They are the food that keeps you alive in dangerous conditions. Mm-hmm. You eat one, you protect yourself with the other. That's the Nordic carrot.
You'd have to have Would they be more? Yeah, they'd definitely be more crunchy.
Of course, mind you, with when it comes to foods, I've been told adding a location always makes it sound tastier, sounds better.
Yeah, true.
With one exception.
Okay.
Detroit. Would you want to eat a Detroit salmon?
Detroit salmon? No, I wouldn't.
How about Newfoundland salmon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. How about, say some Alaskan moose?
Yeah.
All right, how about Detroit beef?
I'd probably eat it just because of the beef, but I don't think Detroit makes it any better.
Exactly. Detroit's got such a sadly bad reputation that they can't associate themselves with food.
Was that from an XKCD thing?
I actually believe it was from another one.
Another comic? Okay.
Yeah. I do recall it being from a web comic, but I can't recall off the top of my head which one it was.
That's fine.
But yeah. So maybe Nordic with food in the front of it shouldn't apply. How about, would you drive a Nordic car? If Chrysler had a factory up there, would you drive the Nordic Chrysler?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would trust the Nordic Chrysler in winter. I'll say that.
Wait, what's the Swedish Volvo? Is that it?
Swedish Volvos, yeah. Well, they take a good hit, I've been told. They're very well made.
Yeah, I don't know.
That said,
I've
you
never
got to
owned a Volvo, but
you got to be careful of the Swedish meatballs. Apparently, some of the stuff not always proper meat in there. Some horse meat apparently recently.
Swedish fish don't even have fish in them. What's with that? And Swedish berries? Actually, I think Swedish berries would have some berry flavor.
Or artificial berry simulated flavor.
Do you think Swedish fish? Do you think the Swedes eat Swedish fish or know what that is?
Do they call it that? They just call it fish. They call it gummy fish.
Just fish.
Or what if they change it? What if they call
them?
They
must have regular fish.
Yeah, so they can't just call their Swedish fish Swedish fish. What if they just switch up the location? What if in Sweden they're called like Russian fish?
Could be. Yeah.
We'll have to go to Sweden to find out. And that's why I need to win the lottery too. The lottery and a time travel machine. That's all I need.
Did you ever see that map where like it shows what the name of the turkey, like the bird, is in different countries? And it's it looks almost like a merry-go-round because often the turkey is named after a different country. Like, I think it is related, like our word turkey is related to the country Turkey in some way. I'm not sure it's direct, but they are related. But also, like, a turkey in different countries is named after some other country.
Maybe just some people got together. It's like, well, let's export this bird all around, and like, what should we call it? Dude, what if we name it after one country here, but we keep cycling it around for everything else? And the guys are like, well, you know what? That's probably irresponsible for us because we could come up with one name for everyone. But I like your idea. I like where that's coming from. I like your energy. Let's go with that. Because I like to imagine histories like that sometimes. It probably never is, but I like to imagine.
Yeah.
But, well, that's the thing with the Nordic people, though, is they are also known for taking forays, not necessarily peacefully, because they call themselves Vikings from time to time, and they'd be out for a month or two at a time, and then they'd come back with a bunch of British stuff that they never paid for, except by purchase of conquest.
Well, British and all of Eastern Europe and even into like North Africa.
The Mediterranean, I've been told, got hit pretty hard. Some places, maybe as far as Egypt.
Yeah. So the Vikings, they sort of, and also they wouldn't just, they would do those, sort of raids and come back. We talked a little bit of Vikings in another episode, but they would also, like, sometimes it'd be like, okay, we're moving there now, and that's how you get Normandy.
You know what, this place is so nice, we're going to stop beating your heads in, but we are just going to move in down the road.
Yeah.
So for the last couple of years of raids, we won't be doing it again, because now you're our neighbors.
Yeah, and I think the King of France was like, okay, well, here, have a title.
You're not going to attack us? Well, yeah, sure. Take a title, man. Take a title. Plus, it's just kind of nice. It's like, well, if we have the pretty old Vikings and now the Normans right there, I don't think the British are going to attack because they've been hit pretty hard by the Vikings and they're going to try and want to go elsewhere. So I think that's our security blanket right here. So yeah, you guys settle in. Come in. Yeah, we'll give you an acre of land and an oxen or something.
Yeah.
So smart move on the King of France's part. Say what you want about the French, monarchy, but they did have a good idea from time to time.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out nomads seem to figure into the sort of the movements of empires because they're often hired as
mercenaries.
Like mercenaries, and they sort of shape Europe, for example, and Asia for that matter, in that they have horse nomads, like being on the Mongolian Empire was.
Oh yeah,
nomads.
The Hungarians they sacked Rome a couple times.
Those guys.
So yeah, I mean, you can see I see you split the whole thing down to your beneficial sort of good nomads that wind up doing stuff like trade circuit routes sort of thing and deliver goods and information to people. Your ambivalent stuff we call the Romani people. Because gypsy is apparently a derogatory sort of term, and so we'll call them the Roma. They went from place to place, although they weren't very well accepted. I mean, Cher even wrote a song as to what people thought of them: gypsies, tramps, and thieves. And then you've got your invading nomads that are there for all your wonderful stuff. So best hide it. And I'm willing to bet there's probably still a good couple of caches of wonderful treasures that people buried so that the invading Huns wouldn't find it, and then nobody was alive left afterwards to figure out where they buried the good stuff.
Yes.
Keep searching. I'm betting you there's at least one treasure hoard sitting somewhere underneath the Mediterranean Europe.
Do you think pirates count as nomads?
Almost intrinsically, yeah, because they got to keep moving. So the thing is, they get welcomed in as sailors when they're giving you, their ill-gotten booty, but then they wind up causing enough trouble that the local constabulary says, "Hey, get back on that boat and get going." So they do, and then they raid some more, ships, get the goods, repeat in another town.
Yeah. Although, I think pirates, there's this idea of sort of they have a plan that eventually, once they get enough booty, they're going to settle down somewhere.
Well, that's a romanticized version. Really, it was just I can't make a living honestly, so piracy.
Just stay on the boat until whatever happens.
Until I get enough money to go off and try living honestly again.
Well, and I suppose in the pirate era, if you could travel the seven seas, there's always a country that you can go to. Because, the big powers, England and Spain, would be at war, so if you're kind of a little bit against England... If you
knew how to keep a boat right side up, then there's a spot for you in their militia as part of their irregulars.
Yeah. I've been watching, I watched one episode of The Pirate Show with John Malkovich. I forget what it's called now. It's Blackbeard. The Man Who Killed Blackbeard, I think it's called. I watched one episode of that.
Enlightening, informative, or just general, trite sort of thing? Not
yet. I mean, it was kind of fun. There was a whole, they kidnapped a lady, and they, the British were going to bury her alive. I think they were just trying to, I don't think what they were trying to do is break her. They buried her in a coffin, but they just waited for her to, say...
Freak out?
Yeah, whatever. But
Scream loud enough they can hear her?
I think she was Blackbeard's girlfriend or something. So he comes and he rescues her. Spoilers for the episode, but
so that's not just Blackbeard's girlfriend, and he was kind of into that thing with her. It wasn't a foreplay issue. That was actually them tormenting his girlfriend.
Yeah, and they chopped up. They used their pirate swords, cutlasses, right? That's what pirates.
Cutlasses, technically machetes and machete-like stuff.
They chopped up all the British guys, so that was fun. I mean, not for
the British, of course.
Not that I have anything against the British, but although that era's British, the pirate era, the
colonial era of the British, they
I don't really like them. Of course they're villains. So
they thought they were doing good, and they did bring civilization to all sorts of little nooks and crannies of the world. They could have been a lot better about it, I'll say that. But yeah, with pirates, I think they've got a very nice style of nomadism, because you work along an island sort of based thing where you have to, have this, massive undertaking. You can't just build a raft and then just kind of row to the neighboring island. There's a fair distance between some of these areas. You've got to have a real boat. So it's a much more dedicated thing. Some people were nomads because, well, you know what? It's just easier to keep on moving down the road than it is to start again here. But if you were a pirate sort of thing, well, it had to be either by very good circumstance you come by a boat, or you make a conscious decision. I am going out and I'm always on the move.
Yeah.
So you could also split your nomads down to by choice and by circumstance, I suppose, in that case. So you could wind up having you could split your invading hordes by choice. Like those Romans got some really sweet stuff, but I don't want to pay for it. And this is way too early to do an illegal download because we don't even have the internet or even technology. We don't have electricity yet.
We're not that kind of pirate.
So we're just gonna have to raid them and take all their stuff. We can't even do a cheap 3D printing because we're we don't even know about that yet. We're primitives.
Yeah.
We're barbarians. Dang it. And then I suppose you could have it by circumstance where it's like, we need your food because we're starving and we'll overrun and take your stuff. But I suppose the gold stuff, if we can carry it with us, we'll go for that. But we're really after your food, sort of thing. It doesn't happen as often throughout history, but it is known to happen, especially when things get tight.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, which category you would put the Mongol hordes, like the Genghis Khan was, because it was very unified. It's very he's a giant emperor king or whatever, the god king or whatever he ended up being called. So he's
a Khan.
So what the individual, I wonder, the little whatever armies he had would have been sort of units of barbarians along with the
various
armies
unified tribes. I mean, he did have 300 wives, man. He married politically a lot more than most people ever think to.
So they would, I wonder if they would act as one big empire, in the name of the empire? Or
he effectively loose-knit them together through political marriage and intimidation. Okay. And then once he had that, that working base, hey, China! Let's take that.
And I suppose, if you're a barbarian unit, or, a nomadic unit, part of the incentive of going to war, even if you do ultimately do it for another person, is you get some of the spoils. You
get stuff you couldn't normally get on your own, so you couldn't make. I mean, there was some nice stuff. You want the fine china from China sort of thing. That's some nice dishes there. You're not going to be able to make something like that when you're on a nomadic lifestyle. That requires a decent amount of infrastructure to build, but you can always take it from someone else. So hey, rating. And that's not a bad way to go, I suppose, from an objective perspective. There's some moral and ethics stuff. Maybe we should try paying for it first, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing he did, too, was he captured some of the artisans from China and stuff and brought them to his own court.
Yeah,
and they
were slaves, but they were kept very well, and they helped flourish and redefine culture for the previous low-tech, low-culture-style Mongols. But here's an interesting thing. One of the reasons the Mongols were so good at raiding and attacking was they had a different mental perspective from their nomadic lifestyle. The Chinese, people in their towns, they thought, okay, we huddle up, we form defensive stuff, and we stay where we are. We turtle, effectively. Whereas the Mongols, they thought in a much more movement-based style. They're turtling focused this way. We come around quicker than they can move about, and we strike the vulnerable back. And that's the thing is they were thinking in a completely different way, and I would love to see that be shown up more often in a setting. Because they talk about elves. Elves live 700 years. Oh, actually, it's been shortening down by about 100 years per edition, apparently, but whatever. But elves live a very long lifestyle. So, oh no, there's kobolds have sprung up in this forest. The elven way of saying is, well, hey, they'll probably die out in 20, 30 years, so let's not even bother. I mean, it's only 2 decades, right? Come on. So their mental perspective is take the very long view of things, because they're so long-lived. It's the forest burned down. It'll only be back in 80 years. It'll be like nothing ever happened. And for an elf, 80 years is just slightly over a decade for us. That's pretty good. Although, mind you, it doesn't always take 80 years for a forest to come back. I recall one spot near where I grew up, there's a forest fire shortly after I was born, and just before I went off to university, you could see some real progress. You could still see the blackened sticks from the old stuff, but the new forest was coming in quite nice. So that took only 20 years, which would be, just about just under 5 years, I suppose, for an elf, from an elven perspective for us. To have a forest regrow up to be looking, hey, that's looking nice now.
Yeah, and forest fires are part of the natural cycle of things, so...
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in some stuff, not
Unless
all
it was
forests.
like caused by a war or something, like maybe somebody burnt it down on purpose.
Not all forests have that sort of style. The ones in North America do, and we've overdone our fire protection for way too long, so it's causing some issues.
Yeah.
But some other areas, like the sandy areas, where you have your beach palms and all that go up, they just get knocked over by wind, and that's how they don't need to burn. They just make sure you push the tree over in 20 years and plant a new one, and that's good enough. That's all you really need there.
Yeah.
But they don't speak the same way with the halflings, the same way with their nomadic perspective, except in Eberron when they were Keith Baker, Keith Baker sat down and really decided, hey, they're nomads? Okay, let's have some fun with this. Let's just really make sure they have their culture. They ride dinosaurs, not ponies, because, hey, now they're extra awesome. Halflings on dinosaurs. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And so he came up with a nice culture for them, a little bit from the plains natives sort of thing, and a little bit of his own stuff, and melded it all together like clay into his own design. And so they actually did have their thing. The Dark Sun campaign had them as cannibalistic barbarians. And that had its own little bit of a perspective that never went in quite so much. I would like to see that where their mental perspective is in that design. Like, if they're nomadic, I can understand why they've got +1 attack with slings and all that, because, like makeshift weapons, something you can pick off the ground and use quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have the time to craft these bolts proper and all that.
Yeah, sling would be easy to transport. Easier,
it's light, you can just wrap it around your thing and, hey, now it's an armband, haha.
Yeah.
Unwind it, there you go, now you got a sling, pick up a rock from the ground, poof, 1 die 4. Oh, wait, they're small, 1 die 3 damage.
I don't know.
There
I wonder
you go.
if 5th edition is going to have that. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to wait a little bit and find out.
I think I did see a preview page with the weapons damage on them, but I don't remember what it said.
But so they have at least that there, but they don't have anything for like they're really good at riding sort of thing. Like how do these halflings get from A to B? Apparently they walk because they're not known for a riding based culture.
Mm. Well, walking is fine because that's the whole you can't just ride everywhere. I suppose you could. I don't know. But it's good to have that.
That said, if you're a nomadic person, you're going to have a lot better time and cover much more ground by having a pony or a dinosaur or whatever you want with you.
Yeah, but those can be expensive. Like if we're talking about an entire culture who's
they breed
nomadic.
and raise their own sort of thing. So if it's within the town, sort of thing, it's like, we're going to need a couple more, mules, we'll say. Let's say these halflings work with mules. And we're going to have to make sure during the breeding season when they're in the proper area, we have this much. Any excess we sell off to those tall humans. They seem to like mules too.
Well, what if they rode horses and fit 5 or 6 people on a horse because they're small people?
Because it'd be like the equivalent of like a human on an elephant sort of thing.
Yeah.
You get 4 of them on there.
Do you like a little howdah on the horse?
Tiny little halfling howdah. See, I like that. That would be an excellent sort of thing. Is they have very large horses because to them a large horse is the same as an elephant, and they'll be yes, and then you come up with a nice little modifier this is a standard stat array for a horse. If you want the sturdy halfling horse, which is more like a Clydesdale type thing, you work it this way for extra little size, so slightly higher constitution. But lesser dexterity sort of thing, I suppose, because they're used to single straight line, not dancing around or anything, because they're carrying someone on their back.
They could have a howdah on the back and maybe a yoke with baskets hanging off it with one halfling in each one or something like that.
See, I would love seeing that sort of thing. That would really put halflings away from the they're hobbits but not really, wink wink wink. Because back in even 2nd edition they were very much hobbits in pretty much everything but name. Mm-hmm. 3rd edition they changed them up, and so they were half-sized humans. They wore shoes. They were much more physically fit, I've noticed from the artwork in 3rd edition.
Yeah. Well, they didn't want to make them too much like dwarves, I think, because the dwarves aren't physically fit.
They were just much more stout for their body type sort of thing. So you see a dwarf, it's kind of fits into a square.
Yeah.
The gnome was a little leaner. They're a bit more of a rectangle. And then for the halfling, they were even thinner. They were like a human, just kind of
like a human child, basically.
Isometrically proportionate. Which I don't know if that was the right way to do for them. I would have preferred seeing them have some visual characteristic differences, which I think they will be doing in 5th edition. just so that way you can tell a halfling from a human if there's no size differences to show what's going on in the background. How can you tell? Well, it's clear. I mean, you see the head shape differences is here. It's going on like this, and they like doing their stuff all up in braids and bows sort of thing, so it's the hair going off on them, and that's what you can tell.
Yeah, that was a good look.
Yeah. Leather and feather go with the post-apocalyptic sort of style going for them, right?
Yeah. Cool.
And so that would be nice, and I would love to see more of that. But the sad part is for nomadism, especially in D&D, it's an informed ability. You don't see it. It's not. It's mentioned, but never shown. Never really given much attention to. And there's like a halfling district in town. Like, well, why there's a halfling district? Is it empty part of the year because they're nomadic?
Yeah.
Are they like shunned halflings that are staying, like a sedentary? Or are they like just the too young and the too old to travel? Is that what they do? Is this like their home base? The actual nomads go out and about and come back once a year? Yeah, I would love to see something about that. I would love to get that culture, that taste, that flavor in there.
Yeah. You could even have a campaign world, though. I think Dark Sun is a little bit like this, but you could have a campaign world where all the races are nomadic.
Or at least, forced, because that's nomadic not by choice but by circumstance.
Yeah.
The water is only there part of the year, and then it dries up for the extra dry summer months. You can come back again, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But there's always a chance some other tribes found the new water source, and you got to go to battle to see which tribe gets access to the water, because there's not enough for both. And I do like that, and that is less informed, because I have seen adventures in the Dark Sun campaign where that's basically it. You're part of like a thing, and hey, you find water, and oh boy, it's a little salty or whatever and disgusting, but hey, it's water, yay! Unfortunately, along comes the tribe who claims that as their own, so now you've got to fight a tribe of we'll call them elves in this case, Dark Sun elves with their crazy running all the time ability. So you can't outrun them, so you got to either diplomacy or fight. And nobody's got any actual metal items, so have fun with your sucky weapons of wood and bone.
Cool. Well, we've been going just over time. I should mention all of our social media.
Yes.
Email us, thesimulationist@gmail.com. thesimulationist@gmail.com. Facebook.com/thesimulationist. You can leave comments on there. You can like the page, and then you'll see every update that we make.
Which is about once a week.
Yeah, we basically just with the episode, we might chat a little bit if you want to join us on there for a conversation. And YouTube. The same file goes up on YouTube. I just put a little picture on top of it, so you can comment there. You can also subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or your favorite podcast application, whatever you happen to use. I haven't mentioned Stitcher in a while, so yay Stitcher. Stitcher's good. Stitcher will recommend for you like related podcasts, so automatically it does that for you. So that's useful. You can leave reviews on both, all your favorites, Stitcher and iTunes. Leave us like stars and thumbs up and all those other things that we like.
13 dwarves out of 13.
Exactly. I think that's all the social media. You can tweet at me at spaceboot1 on Twitter. I'm trying to be more active, but I don't tweet a whole lot. But I'm trying to do more. So.
Maybe you should join up with some people just so you can follow their tweets, and then it's like, oh hey, no, that's there, now I'm in. Let's put up a little thing so friend up with Will Wheaton and Monty Cook and all that.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Just a nice way to help get you in the loop and in the practice of seeing what's going on, and then hey, maybe put up a tweet of your own.
Yeah. And watch for me in person in the streets of Victoria, British Columbia. And if you don't find me, you can find other cool entertainment because it's summer and there's all kinds of cool stuff down there.
You can find Darth Fiddler, you could get the Copper Cowboy.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of people down there, wonderful stuff. And if you can't find even them, just go down to the Inner Harbor and get a caricature of yourself. Yeah. You've worked hard, you deserve it. Come on. There you go.
So that's all that stuff. Let's see. I don't know if we have final thoughts on nomadism.
I would like to see a lot more, but I think there's enough potential to have a great, good splat book on this.
Yeah.
The Wander, because the nature
of
races
or something
well,
like
not just that, just the nature of the adventure is that of the Wander. Like Sergio Aragonés grew the Wander within his name, and. why is he doing this here? Why does he keep going? Well, he's got to keep going because he winds up trashing wherever he goes. His dunder-headed stuff. It's all hilariously done. But he keeps moving, and there's different stuff going on, different locations. Great way to show different scenery. I do believe Sergio Aragonés absolutely loves doing scenery, because that's why Gru keeps wandering. Different scenery, and especially towards the later part of the 10-year run he had with Marvel, some very beautiful background scenes. So yeah, hunt it down if you can get yourself like a collection of his stuff, and that should definitely show you the essential life of the adventurer. But yeah, I would like to see more about this, more ways, some nice rules, some nice stats, and all that thing to help support the wandering adventure, and then branch off to the wandering societies. Like if you're wandering, you're gonna when a body meets a body coming through the rye, sometimes you go the same way, and all of a sudden you find yourself with a whole bunch of halflings for maybe a week or two until you part ways again. That's a nice way. They give you some information, and hey, you go stop the group that's been always marauding them out of the abandoned caves that are over there. And then, hey, they always like you. You get a nice little thing like, oh, hey, they recognize you, and you get free food whenever you're with them because you beat up the orcs that were always harrying them whenever they got too close. There you go.
Very cool.
I can dig it.
Cool.
So I suppose until next week, I hope you can dig it too.
I hope so. Let's see, I've been Josh Treleaven.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
And Sim Dunn.